please remember to leave a like, a comment, share the video about, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Thank you. Well, isn't this just fantastic? Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. I'm very sorry there wasn't any videos yesterday, but my internet was being an absolute ball ache. And by that I mean solely on my computer, and yes, I went through every single sodding tech support solution I could think of, and even the ones that Google would let me look at on my phone. Owing to us being a little bit behind and not able to keep up to date with things on the Twitters, because it's decided to fail again. If you're watching this, oh dear God. We're going to respond to a TikTok user. 2 videos from their account that took my interest, concerning diet culture, perhaps a sprinkle of fat phobia, and how it affects those of differing races to the white one.
Hi, I'm happy to talk about this.
You know this is bait, right? We're going to go through it anyway, but we know it's bait. They pinned it to their bloody profile, so I know it's bait on purpose.
Hi, my name is Lauren. I have my MPH in nutrition, and I like to talk about dismantling diet culture.
Hi, person whose name I've already forgotten. I'm Meg, a dickhead with a microphone, who does not care for commentary concerning the culture of the diet, because it is often misinterpreted, misrepresented as a way of saying super fat, super skinny, and then others then like to break that even further down based on the color of someone's skin.
I made a video yesterday talking about how diet culture is racist and fatphobic.
Yes, oddly enough, I think I have that as the follow-up to this because you're responding to another comment. In fact, the vast majority of your content is you responding to comments. It gives you an opportunity to say the same thing, but with an air of increased smugness, which is enhanced further when you receive more negativity, which, certainly in the online space, is quite the abundant resource.
And this was a really nice comment, so I wanted to actually explain it. So here are 3 ways that diet culture is racist.
If one of the answers is a reference to history and the appropriation of culture concerning weight, don't be surprised.
Number 1, diet culture prescribes the idea that one body type is ideal.
No, it doesn't. The individual thinks that. It is a misinterpretation of information. What you will find is many set themselves goals when they go on what is considered a diet, a weight loss journey, a health adventure, a recalibration of a mind that is too set in its ways, and negative ways at that. So when they look at what options are available to them, they don't consider what will actually work for their body, to give them the best version of their body. The best version is typically the stable one, not the one that constantly fluctuates. Trial, error, practice, hard work, dedication, you can't see me, all the usual really. So no, it is not based on diet culture, because often those that champion what is considered diet culture are famous people, as opposed to the standard oikoi, hi, a member of that, who just crack on and get on with their own lives. It is not a culture of dieting, it is a lifestyle change.
Where did that come from? Usually that body type is going to be something that was created along the lines of BMI, or along the lines of what people in modern day main culture view as attractive.
Yes, typically an individual does base it on some rather pointless factors. We are well aware that BMI is highly inaccurate. Shooting for a suitable BMI is not the worst idea to keep it within healthy parameters. But that doesn't give us the perfect body, does it? Diet culture, as you reference it, certainly doesn't either. There is no such thing as perfection. If anyone thinks there is, you're deluded. The way you've described it, though, seems to have removed the individual's choice as to how they would desire to look. That's why many would seek, rather than to pursue the diet of culture, to instead seek out a shortcut. And by that I mean a literal cut, or some kind of medication that's doing its rounds.
BMI, as we know, and I have a million videos on this, maybe I'll try to link them, was created by a white man in Europe.
The race, ethnicity, location of origin of the individual that created the BMI calculator bears no fact or relevance on the inaccuracies that we have discovered over the years of the BMI calculator. It should be pointed out, in the vast majority of cases, it is still accurate. Although based on that and my height and my weight, I'm still considered massively overweight, and yet I'm not.
A very, very long time ago. and has no actual bearings from modern day society, and he based everything off of ideal features for Belgium at that time.
Adolphe Quetelet founded anthropometry. He was a mathematician, statistician, sociologist, and astronomer. He also founded the Brussels Observatory. He developed the BMI, originally called the Quetelet Index. His work on measuring human characteristics to determine what was considered the ideal average man played a key role in the origins of eugenics. If you're going to be so quick to dismiss the history of vitally important scientists, I would advise you at least know a bit about who they are first. Hell, in this instance, if you're too lazy, just go to Wikipedia or something.
Also, you cannot attribute health to a size.
Yes, you can.
Everyone's body is different, therefore everyone's body will look differently, weigh something different, and that doesn't mean that they aren't healthy. It just means that that's their body and that's what it looks like.
You are right to highlight the very many differences of individual bodies. However, humanity does have a form of uniformity once you remove the blubber from the exterior, and all those icky organs. I'm not going to disagree that there are inaccuracies with BMI, but BMI is still used to this day in the vast majority of countries that operate with a basis of trying to tackle problems like, for example, obesity, and the extreme in the other direction when it comes to children that suddenly cease the moment they become 18 when it becomes beautiful and body positive.
Also, the whole idea that you have to prescribe to healthiness is really hard, especially for people who deal with chronic illnesses. It's very frustrating. Anyway, I digress and continue to step number 2.
Okay, so I'm not going to skip that point. I think it's vitally important to acknowledge the deteriorating health of the human species to the point that many have valid reasoning for not doing something to help themselves. What about those that don't, yet choose to be that way? Why is it then a dunk on diet culture for those that do look after themselves, as opposed to those who choose not to? You're pigeonholing all of humanity in a way that suits you when it suits you, when it's convenient for you. You're ignoring the human nature aspect and element because that needs to be the case to make your point, or to give your point some validity. Do you remember earlier when I mentioned arrogance, high horse, snobbery, elitism, gatekeeping, whichever you prefer, really? Yeah, this BS is basically it. Any excuse to insert something that has a valid point to try and drive home a wider point that actually doesn't carry as much merit when you actually break the statistics of those affected by chronic illness down to the rest of the lowly plebeian.
This has to do with the idea that blackness is attributed to fatness and whiteness is attributed to thinness in a historical context.
Call it. I knew this one was going to come up. Go figure. Standards and times change, but when it doesn't suit me, when it does suit me, when it's convenient, I will trot out the tired old arguments of old that don't really carry much weight now, unlike the, increasing number that do so in places like the US of A, where obesity is in the 40s of percentage. Not many talk about the racial aspect of that, do they? Do you know why? Because no lives matter.
So what this means is that when the United States is coming together, especially, and I'm only talking about the United States, I live here, although it's everywhere in the world, is that people really did not want to be attributed to being black in any way. They did not want to be anywhere close to that. And at the time, people only attributed fatness to being a black trait because they attributed it to not having control over yourself, being a savage, not being able to control how much food you ate. So, to avoid that and avoid being associated with it, diets were created. It was this whole idea that being thin was like being closer to God, being able to control oneself, not being like the savages, over there who are black and can't control themselves and have different body types from us. And this is not to say that all black people look the same, because they don't, but this was the thought process of people in pre-slavery, during slavery, and post-slavery, and still now.
We here in the United Kingdom, with a very rich and deep history, are very grateful that you are able to take time out of your hectic schedule to provide us with a historical lesson. It's not like I've heard this hundreds of times already, and hearing it more isn't remotely exhausting. I want to add an additional point when you mention pre-slavery, because slavery goes back thousands of years. I'd love to know when there was a time in human history where there wasn't slavery. If you can find it, please let me know in the comments, because you can trace North African slavery back to ancient Egypt. In fact, it is argued that slavery predates written records, and that in many cultures can be traced back over 11,000 years. I'm going to be pedantic because you've made a rather silly little point there through your own historical revisionism. There was never a time where slavery didn't exist. I can promise you that. If you're going to make these sodding points, at least get them right. Or as near to right as you can possibly manage.
It's all about that fear of being attributed to being somewhat closer to blackness. And that's the whole thing, is that people don't want to be near blackness because people understand how black people are treated.
Where, if you don't mind me asking? You earlier mentioned being American, you can't speak on other nations, so where? It's very important to have that out there rather than to speak in a realm of vague. Vague does not give fact. Vague only alludes to what you believe fact is. In this video, you are the arbiter of truth. You must provide that information.
Third point, which is the demonization of cultural foods, which is the biggest part of why diet culture is super racist.
You should come to the United Kingdom sometime. You will find that the UK, when it comes to differing cultural cuisine, is a bit of a melting pot for so many different cultures, and we like it. And also, somewhat ironically, you mention this issue when it comes to culture and food, yet your country is, renowned for bastardizing multi-cultures into one dish. Cough, cough, Olive Garden, cough, cough. Don't forget here, some of the most popular meals or food groups in your country come from Europe.
This is the whole idea that cultural foods are somehow incredibly unhealthy and everything else is okay.
For this point to stand, I'm going to have to ask you to provide evidence to back this one up. Otherwise, it is an assertion, and one I, as an Englishman, am happy to dismiss.
For example, white rice, or the idea that like eating black eyed peas, fried chicken, all this stuff will kill you.
It's all about the quantity aspect of that, don't you think? Portion control is key in how often you eat certain food groups. We know that eating chicken is healthy. Fried chicken, not healthy. We know that eating white rice is not as healthy as eating alternative rices. I personally love rice. Don't care what's in it, I'll eat it. But I'm acutely aware to justify eating certain foods, I have to work out harder so that my body doesn't hold on to too much of it. When that level of self-awareness becomes a form of muscle memory, you are not feeding into this concept, quaint concept at that, of diet culture. You have simply made an adjustment to preserve your health for as long as possible. Is that fatphobic? Is that racist? No, it bloody well isn't.
Why are people of color, and for myself, black people, always demonized for things that we enjoy eating? It's because they want to take away joy.
Spoken with no level of irony, providing no fact to back up all your claims as an expert. So naturally, I'm going to dismiss everything you've said. On to video number 2.
So I wanted to respond to this one specifically, and I responded to it in the last video I posted as well, but I just really want to point out that I'm not at all saying that black people are inherently fat, nor that being fat is bad.
See what I mean about responding to negative comments? It's great for content on TikTok. The last comment though, that's the part I want to latch onto, because being fat is negative. It can be argued to be a positive in some light if you're a feeder, sure, but generally speaking, it is detrimental to you, for your health, for your appearance, and for your life.
What I'm saying that is, from a historical context, being fat was viewed as being unable to control yourself, being attributed to savagery, which is what was attributed to blackness. Therefore, in an effort to continue to separate themselves from fatness, and this being white people and, slavery times, one of the things they did was say that fatness was like being a black person.
Well, isn't it wonderful we're now in the 21st century, the year of 2024, where most of your remarks still hold true, except for the part where you've assigned race to this as well, because the rest of it is still correct. It's called evolution of the sociological variety. Society often forgets the arbitrary and focuses on the core problem, which is now no longer so much about race and entirely about people's ineptitude, a species that needs to be farmed for the Leviathan, if you know that reference. Grats.
And this is like in the most layman's terms possible. And that is why diet culture within itself is racist. Because the whole point is rooted in this idea that being skinny is closer to being white and therefore better. That means that the whole point of it is to be away from blackness and to make blackness seem like it's a lower tier thing to be.
No, I think you'll find now it's more people trying to struggle to get out of other people's gravitational pulls. Jokes aside, because obviously that was sarcasm if you couldn't tell. This is not the racial problem you believe it to be by today's standards. You asserting this is solely done to bait for clicks. That is your entire channel's, page's existence. Your presence on social media is to bait out with the race card and using nothing to support your arguments. The court of public opinion will dispute this for as long as you are unwilling to provide your evidence to support it. And in before you insert, but I have this friend that went through shut up. Be better than that at least.